Hello, welcome back. We are here today celebrating Father's Day a little early. I have my son-in-law here with me and he's mixing up his secret recipe of Bloody Marys, and it's all about burgers today. TJ, I'm gonna have you grill, is that okay?
Sure.
Awesome. Okay, well let's get started. The first thing I want to show you today is maple bacon with walnuts. Let me grab that bacon. So you know I like to cook Whole30 and Paleo. We also have an option considered food freedom. And on special days, if you decide you want to just incorporate some things that you don't typically eat, then we call it food freedom because it's not something you do all the time, but once in a while it's okay. But I still like to stick to Paleo and Whole30 as much as I can. So for this recipe, I'm using this no sugar bacon. It has no nitrates, and it's not cured with any sugar. I find that it really has a great flavor. It's basically, you know, just sliced raw bacon. But I really prefer this, any kind of bacon that you can find without sugar. And what we're gonna do with this is very simple. I'm gonna take a tablespoon of maple syrup per slice of bacon, and I have 6 bacon slices here. And I'm just gonna pour that maple syrup. And this is just an organic maple syrup that I get at the grocery store, no big deal. And I have some crushed walnuts. We're gonna just add those crushed walnuts to the top of this after we, a little extra never hurts. I don't like to make it too saucy because then I worry about it sticking to the paper when it bakes because this maple will caramelize. And I like to use the maple syrup because I find that it's not as sugary. You know, some restaurants, this is a big trend right now with the brown sugar bacon. I think it's really unnecessarily sweet, but the maple syrup just gives it a nice sweetness without getting too sugary. So I just brushed that on with a little pastry brush, no big deal. And then I have some crushed walnuts. If you'd rather do almonds, you can do that. Take your pick, but I prefer the walnuts because I can get them nice and fine and they'll press into that maple syrup, and as the fat on the bacon renders, it all comes together so nicely. And guess what we're using this on? I'm making little piggy burgers. You'll see in a minute. And this is gonna be one of the toppings. So I'm just gonna push that in a little bit to make sure it sticks. And this is gonna go in a 350-degree oven for about 15 minutes. Judge your oven and the finish of the bacon, how you prefer your bacon to be finished. I like mine kind of almost crispy, but still a little tender. So this is going in the oven. It's already at 350. And I'm gonna set the timer for 10 minutes, and it might need another 5. So I said I'm making little piggy burgers, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I've got 2 burgers today. Oh, let's do that. I'm gonna start the caramelized onions first because this is a great topping, but it needs some time to cook. So first I'm gonna show you, I have some Vidalia onions already sliced. They're a very sweet onion and they'll caramelize very well because they have so much natural sugar in them. So you've seen me cut an onion before. I'm just taking off the root end first. And this is, you know, a relatively small onion because of the type of onion it is. And then I take off the stem end. And then I make a little bit of a slice, just enough to get through that top layer of skin and get the brown skin off. And that should just peel right off in one piece. Now where I made that score mark, I'm gonna cut it in half. And I want this to be slices, so I'm just gonna slice. Again, knuckles forward, fingertips back. And every time you move your fingers, that's where you make the slice. And that's how you make consistent slices. When it gets to the end, flip it over. You always wanna work on the flattest side possible. and that couldn't be easier. I'm just gonna add this to the onions I already have prepped. And we're gonna do caramelized Vidalia onions. And I love these on hamburgers, and I also love to just have them around for anything. So we're gonna start with a skillet on medium-high. Maybe come over here. Is that better? Like it?
It's good.
Turn that light. Oh, it is on.
You're good.
Yeah, let's get the lights on.
Anthony Medina says hi to you.
Hi, Anthony. Thanks for joining. So ghee is basically clarified butter. We take the dairy components out of the butter. You can do regular butter if you prefer, but we are trying to keep this paleo, and this is the closest to dairy we'll eat. I buy this at Thrive Market. You'll find their link on my website. We're just gonna let this get hot. You can see it's melting already. It's basically just the oil part of the butter. We remove the fat solids. And once this gets nice and shimmery, it's getting there already. We're just gonna put in these onions. And we wanna hear that sizzle right away. So we're gonna give it the little bit of time it needs. It's looking really good. And no sizzle, I didn't wait long enough. But the good thing about this recipe is you can basically walk away from it. Just let it do its thing, and they will caramelize. Once in a while, come back and give it a stir. And I'm also just breaking up some of the onions that are still kind of connected together. I'm just using a spoon. There it goes. Love that, and it just makes the best smell. And I'm not gonna salt these or anything right now. I'm just gonna let them do their thing. They're gonna sweat first, which means they turn a little bit translucent, and then when all those sugars get going, they'll start to turn brown. Now, if you used regular butter, they would turn brown a little faster because of the fat solids in the butter, but because we're basically using without any fat solids, we're gonna rely on the sugar in the onion to get them brown. It might not get as brown as it would with butter, but that's okay because we'll still get that great Vidalia onion sweetness. So let's get the burgers going so we can get TJ out on the grill, okay? Get this out of the way. So the first burger I want to show you, I call the Little Piggy Burger because we're using ground pork. I just buy this brand of sustainable ground pork. You can use any kind of ground pork you like. This is 1 pound. And then this is the secret ingredient. It's chorizo sausage. And I buy the links and then I just take it out of the skin, and it's spicy. You can smell the seasoning in it, and it really is just enough to season this pork. I'm gonna pop it right out of the skin and put that aside. And this is where you get your hands dirty. Just get in there and squish it together. And you can tell when the sausage has been distributed enough through the pork because it's just gonna all become marbled with that darker color from the seasoning. I like the chorizo, I like the seasoning in chorizo. You could probably use your favorite sausage. I don't know that I would try Italian sausage because we're going for spicy, not necessarily savory. But give this a try. If you find some chorizo links or if you find some loose bulk chorizo, this is a great way to do a little variation on hamburger. I'm also going to do a bison burger. But the thing I wanted to show you is how to shape a burger. There's a little trick to it. These are gonna be about 6-ounce burgers. And yes, I know that that's about 6 ounces. I start by shaping it into a ball. They have a nice round ball. And then with my thumbs, I squish the middle as I shape the patty. And the reason I do that is because as soon as you put these burgers on the grill, this happens with every kind of ground meat, the center's gonna puff up. And then what do? When it puffs up, you flatten it with a spatula. And then all the juice comes out and you have a dry, flat burger. So if you just give it a little depression in the center and let the edges be a little thicker, that middle will just level off when you throw them on the grill. You can do these in advance and chill them first, or you can go straight on the grill with them. I'm gonna wash my hands and check those onions because it sounds like they're really cooking. And then I'm gonna show you a really fun rub. Let's see how these guys are doing. Oh yeah, we're gonna turn this down a little bit and let them just go to town. They're already getting that nice, beautiful brown color. And I like to shake the pan whenever I'm sauteing something, and it really helps to level them off so they all cook evenly. I'm just doing that to like a medium-low now, and I'm just gonna let them go by themselves. So I like bison for burgers. I think it's a fun alternative to ground beef. It's very lean and it's very flavorful. This is a 1-pound package, so I usually get between 2 and 3 burgers depending on the portion size. I like 6 ounces. That's kind of my magic number for meat or any protein, whether it's chicken or whatever other kind of protein I'm serving. And I'm gonna do the same thing with this burger. First, shape it into a ball, and you can see it's so nice and red. Hardly any fat in this at all. You don't need to overcook these. They get nice and juicy without having a lot of fat.
So Mom, I know a lot of times there's questions on, or I have questions specifically on like what fat content to sort of buy when it comes to ground beef. So I know ground chuck is somewhere between 80 to 85% lean. You have ground round, which is about 85 to 90. And then you got sirloin, which is somewhere between 90 and 92% lean. But when do you use the different types? Like what's best for what?
So I like to do the leaner meats or the meats with less fat, like a 90-10, which would be a ground sirloin for a burger or something like that. But I also think it's even better if you do it in something like a meatloaf because it doesn't have a lot of fat. And when you bake it in a pan, it helps contain the juices and the fat. I also think that if you grill a piece of meat, it's okay to have some fat in it because that's gonna render out as it cooks and get nice and, it's not gonna like retain all that fat and get greasy. So that's typically how I like to do it. A little leaner for the things that I'm putting in the oven or baking or roasting, and a little fattier for grilling.
Awesome, thanks.
Sure, I'm gonna check that bacon. And this is looking unbelievable, but it's gonna need a little more time, so I'm just gonna rotate the pan. I do have a convection oven. It has a fan in the back. I love that, but I also get a little, you know, I like to make sure that it's always turning the pan, so if there's any hot spots in the oven, it has a chance to even out the cooking. And I'm just stirring these onions some more. They're getting really, really nice. And you can see they can get nice and brown without necessarily having that dairy fat in there. And they're so sweet when they're done. Now I have a rub that's a little unusual that I want to show you for seasoning beef or these bison burgers. It's going to be something that I'm going to mix in this little jar. And it has some very unique ingredients. And I started using this when I first went Whole30 because I was trying to stay away from certain seasonings like pepper and spicy things. I've since incorporated those back into my diet. But this is a very flavorful way to bring out the really great flavors of beef, and it works great for grilling too. So I'm gonna start with, I don't have it memorized, a tablespoon of ground coriander, which I have in this jar. Coriander is the seed from cilantro, and the tablespoon doesn't fit, but 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon. So 1, 2, 3, coriander, and I'm just gonna put everything in this little jar and shake it. I'm going to put a couple tablespoons of salt, and I'm using a good kosher salt. You can also use the nice Maldon sea salt that I like. So that was 6 teaspoons, so 2 tablespoons. A teaspoon of ground clove, which has a nice savory essence, but it's not sweet. I know you think of clove, you think of baking, but it is not sweet. It's what gives baking a nice spice, like spice cake or gingerbread. A teaspoon of cinnamon. You like the smell of that? It's good, right? And cinnamon is a signature Greek spice for anything tomatoey or with meat, so can't do without the cinnamon. And then I'm using some instant coffee. This is just ground espresso, instant espresso. I'm gonna do a tablespoon of that because I really love that nice smoky flavor that it gives it. And then finally, 2 teaspoons of cocoa powder. This is a nice, rich, dark cocoa powder. I had a friend whose mom used to make brisket with coffee and just leave it in the oven, and it's one of those really old, amazing recipes that is always delicious. And that's it. You just shake it up, leave it in the jar. You've got it handy for any time you want to season some beef, and I'm just going to sprinkle it on and pat it in. TJ, if you want to bring me those burgers, I'll go ahead and get those seasoned, and then you can get them on the grill for me. So I already have prepped 3 of the little piggy burgers and 3 of the bison burgers, and TJ is going to get these going on the grill for me. And this is just a really nice alternative to Montreal seasoning or any of the other typical steak seasonings that you can buy already done in the store. You like those? Use those. I'm just trying to show you a little something different. Let's give Dad the kind of day he deserves. All right, these are ready for you. Thank you. I'm gonna wash my hands again. I'm gonna check those onions again because they're really yummy. What do we have next?
Next we're going to do the fried egg.
Oh, yes. There's nothing like a burger without a fried egg. I'm going to scoot these onions off the burner because I think they look really good.
It's like delicious.
In fact, yeah, let's just let those cool over there, and we'll bring this to the front. Again, a little bit of ghee, because I like to have an egg with a crispy bottom, and I'll show you what I mean. I love when the egg just has some nice crispy edges, gives it a little bit of texture, but you still get that yummy, unctuous yolk. And that could be the end of the bacon. Let's see. I think it needs about 5 more minutes. And again, depending on the bacon, sometimes if it's a little fattier, it's going to take a little longer to cook. Sometimes I cook my bacon on a rack when I do it in the oven, or if I do it in the air fryer. Since I'm doing it on a sheet pan, that rendered out fat really doesn't have any place to go, so it could take a little longer to cook. But also remember not to overcook it, because when you cool it slightly, it will get, firmer. So you don't want to overcook it to the point where it's so crisp that when it cools, it's crumbling. I'm just going to give this another 5. So that'll be a total of 20 minutes. And this looks like it's getting nice and shimmery. And I'm just gonna crack this egg right into the pan. And the first thing I like to do right away is start scooping that white into the center. I'm using a nonstick pan because it just really helps with the whole process. Usually though, I prefer to not cook with nonstick pans. I don't like the chemical. It does sputter, so stand back or wear an apron. I'm not doing either of those. And I just keep scooting it to the center for two reasons. I want the white to kind of puff up, and I also want it to be about the size of the burger. And now you can see that white is coagulating and turning nice and opaque. And I'm just gonna tilt the pan slightly and spoon the melted butter, the melted ghee, over the top of the egg. So this will help cook the top a little bit without having to turn it. Still considered sunny side up. And they'll help get those edges nice and brown. And this just puffs up like a souffle.
Can you talk a little bit about the time differences for like a fried egg versus an over easy versus like a hard egg?
You know, eggs are so subjective. Everybody likes their eggs to a different doneness. When I do hard-boiled eggs, I do them 8 minutes. Some people like 10 minutes. When I'm doing an egg like this, I'm pretty much going by how it looks. And the result that I'm looking for here is to get a little bit of caramelization on the bottom and still have that nice runny yolk. And you can see this is pretty much getting there already. See how that's getting nice and brown under there? So that's done. And I'm just gonna move that to a saucer here. And you can fry up as many of these as you want to have them ready for Dad's Day, or you can do them to order. That's it. But that's okay, because as soon as you stick it on the burger, it's gonna fall apart. And I have to tell you, one of my biggest pet peeves is when I'm in a restaurant and I order a burger with an egg and they stick that steak knife right through the middle and they ruin the yolk. It's the worst. Don't ever let somebody do that to your burger. So we're gonna bring this over here. And how are we doing with those burgers?
2 minutes to flip.
2 minutes, okay. So let me talk to you a little bit about this Bloody Mary bar that we created, because Dad loves Bloody Marys. This is brand new from New Primal. It's a buffalo seasoning mix, which basically gives anything you season with this a nice buffalo flavor. So obviously chicken. It would be great on those pork burgers. You could sprinkle it on after. We made a salt mix with the buffalo seasoning, and TJ just seasoned this glass. So doesn't that look awesome? And it's so spicy. So that's very fun. I've got some coconut shrimp here. The coconut shrimp I actually buy in the store. It's gluten-free. You can do any kind of shrimp you like, or you can do a shrimp cocktail. These olives are just green olives that we marinated in some Bloody Mary mix. Some Cornichon, of course, you have to have celery. And another thing from New Primal, if you like to see a little bit of jerky with your Bloody Mary, I prefer these. These are grass-fed. It's a classic beef stick, and they're just delicious. You can cut them in half, or you can just use them whole, and I think TJ likes to have the big ones, right? So we're gonna leave them just like this. Let me take a look at that bacon next. Those burgers are probably done if you want to bring them in. Oh, I know what I forgot to have you do. I didn't do the ghee. Let me do this real quick for you. So since it's food freedom and Dad likes a bun, we're just gonna do a little bit of ghee because we can't have him eat all that. On the bun, and we'll just throw that on the grill too. And that would really help. I think those taste great. And the bacon sounds like it's ready. Oh yeah. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? You know what? I'm going to grab a fork and put that over here. So we can plate it up. Can you see with this tray, or should I push it out of the way?
You're good.
Let's do that. So we've got all sorts of fun burger toppings for Dad. Burger toppings are endless. Use your imagination and you will find all kinds of different options and whatever Dad likes. So you can see it's still just a little soft, but as it cools, it will, oh come on, it will firm up.
Looks delicious.
We made this the other day and it was a hit.
The boys are messing around back here.
Yeah, it's not Father's Day yet. We still have a couple of days. Oh goodness.
Will they start to thicken a little bit more?
Yeah, they'll firm up as they cool off. And you can cut those in half if they fit on your burger a little better. And we've got some other fun things that we can put on the burgers. I prefer no bun. I like to just put my burger on some fun romaine. I've washed some romaine. If somebody wants a bun and they want to use the romaine as part of their garnish, they can do that. I've got some avocado pre-sliced and I just put a little lime juice on it. And another fun topping, just to give the mayonnaise a little extra kick. You know I love my avocado oil mayonnaise, and this sriracha is sweetened with dates, so it also does not have sugar. And I just mix a little bit of each together. And this is also a fun sauce to serve with it. Ooh, those look perfect. What do you think? Are we ready?
I think we're ready.
So we've got some amazing burgers. We've got some delicious Bloody Marys. I'm gonna plate
Yum.
up.
It's funny, your chorizo burger almost looks like a chicken patty.
I know, right? This is how I would do it for me. A little bit of lettuce. Put that chorizo patty. Piece of this bacon. See, it's already firming up. It was a little difficult to get off that sheet pan, but now that it's cooled even slightly, and that's my little piggy burger. You can put a little dollop of chorizo mayo on top. And maybe a slice of avocado. Slice or two. Who needs cheese? All right, put cheese if you want to put cheese. But I think if you have enough fat in your meat and it's flavorful enough, the burger should be able to stand up to its own. What are you guys doing over there? You making some Bloody Marys?
Yep.
So I can just have these picks ready to go, and whoever is serving themselves at our do-it-yourself Bloody Mary bar can just add their own little garnish. Again, this is totally up to your imagination. What do you think? You want that?
I want that one.
Take it.
Thank you.
What can I get you, honey?
Don't get the olives.
Olives.
The beef stick.
And the beef stick. Oh, that skewer isn't good. Let's do a different skewer.
So Mom, if you can't eat cheese, what are some options if you really love cheese stuffed olives?
So there's some really good non-dairy cashew cheese that's soft, and you could just put some of that into a piping bag and fill the olives with that. How's that?
Perfect. Throw the beef stick.
Oh yes, sorry. Good idea. There we go. And a celery.
Oh yeah, of course.
Look at that.
Now we're almost complete.
Okay.
Yum.
Who wants a bison burger?
How would they to me?
Cheers.
Thank you.
So make sure that you like my page, Living Delish and Nutrish. Don't forget we have our Whole30 group with prep starting on June 29th. All of this can be considered Whole30 with the exception of the maple syrup and the Bloody Marys. But I'm happy to coach you through a Whole30. It's called Building Resistance this time, and you can sign up online. Make sure you like my website. All these recipes will be up later today or tomorrow. And thanks again for joining me. Happy Father's Day. Oh, and one last thing. I saved the best for last. Today is my dad's 92nd birthday. So if he's watching, happy birthday, Papu. We love you, and we'll be coming over to visit you shortly. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining.